I'm feeling like this little bit of pressure, Allan, because I've watched these great sessions kicking off, and everybody had a video, but I'm just going to mic drop here. We didn't bring a video, we brought a whole building. So just saying. It's not a bad way to start, right?
It's nice, it's good. I'm just scared of any questions that Honor's going to have, so I just want to get this over and done with before he has a question, okay?
Well, we've got some security ushers that we can...
Okay.
Just kidding.
They won't tackle him.
Yeah. So maybe before we just get started, if you could take a minute to introduce yourself and any2any to everybody here, and then we'll take it away.
Hey, so excuse my voice a little bit. It's Oktoberfest season. So I'm Allan Chester, CEO and founder of any2any. We've had different names over the last 10 years of what we do. The word credential management seems to be kind of the one in trend. We move towards the idea of credential orchestration. At the end of the day, we're trying to create better experiences, better secure connected experiences. So that's everything of helping people flow into different spaces, find connection and community, and through that, we kind of stumbled on access control. But it's not just access control in terms of doors and locks, it's printing, parking, single sign-on, virtual, physical access. Anything that goes beep is the sarcastic way of putting that. So a lot of the use cases you see here, from identification to print, to parking, to smart metering, to the bike shed, the IoT stuff that we do, single sign-on, all of this is around the flow of getting people into spaces. And that's where it complements quite lovely with you guys, because to make that happen, we need readers that are smart. So we started engaging much more with the reader technology, the firmware, the access control systems, the CRM systems, everything to make that life easier for the end user to have a better experience. And that's always been our start, and it was our starting point.
Absolutely love that. Easy is something that people embrace, and it's really an enabler for change. Similar to the past sessions we've listened to, there's a series of key questions we're gonna kind of roll through, but this is interesting because we talked about at the start of today, partnerships that are long-lasting and have been around with ELATEC for decades, and then we get a chance to sit here with a somewhat newer partnership, right? That in comparison is in its beginning stages, and yet still the same type of exciting, disruptive type capabilities. So as we get into the questions and we look at partnership, and because we're at the beginning of it, what are the type of things, Allan, that you see as strengthening and enabling this partnership to go much deeper?
So I would actually argue we've had a longer relationship with ELATEC than maybe we both knew, because ELATEC is very present, obviously, around printing and parking and all the things we've been talking about today. So initially our engagement was around making it go beep. But I think from a partnership perspective, we have to lean into each other to make these things possible. We're going to talk about possibly the challenges around credential management or making things go beep. You know, as we just mentioned here from Evolution ID, there's loads of different segments, but you are kind of purveyors of that last mile. So we bring stuff to you, and the reader then needs to be able to read it, be capable to read it. And you'll see as a barrier for a lot of the transformation projects that the firmware needs to be up to date, the conversation between the readers. I mean, we have the identification things over there. So it's a conversational piece with the reader. So you need to be working deeply with a technology provider to really make that happen. So the better jobs that you guys do in enriching the reader, the better things and the better use cases we can do on our side. So there is a strong partnership there that to make the customer happy, we need to be working closer together from a technology point of view, from a conversational point of view, but also a go-to-market point of view.
Yeah, and I think too, another area that I think is really intriguing about the way we can help enable each other in this partnership is ELATEC really is, incredible at the reader technology side of things. It's a core competency. It's what we do, and credentials are so important to what we do. But that's it's a necessity for us to drive readers. but this is a place where you've created the kind of interoperability we do with readers in credentials. Can you also share a little bit about your thoughts about like mobile wallet and how that for ELATEC customers and using ELATEC devices can be a stronger partnership?
I think the first thing to say is we can do that now. So everything you see in this building, and I think that was one of the first conversations we had, there is actually ELATEC inside this building already, which is great for us. But then you look at the different touch points and the different touch points that make that happen. So I think I'm just trying to get my thoughts together as well of the question, but with what mobile wallets, it's a start of just making things go beep to becoming a much deeper and richer experience. If you talk to the Apples and the Googles, especially Apples, they're looking at the campus experience, the ticketing experience, that full user journey of which you're guiding a customer or a user through all the interactions that matter. So the wallet experience is very new, and there are some slides that talk about mobile, and then seamless access is kind of the goal. And I think most people use things like Star Trek as the way to see how they want people to guide through a building, that there's no watch, there's no device, it just happens. And I think that's a journey that we're going to be on together. So
I like that. So I think that's a great segue into this next topic area, because we're now touching on the mobile credential and some of the, but where do you see today the challenges for customers as they're moving into this new ecosystem? What slows adoption? What are the pain points? Why doesn't things move faster?
That's a great question. There's a the first thing. Look, I think what's very key is this is a demand-led evolution of access control. All the customers want it. There isn't a customer, there isn't a user out there that doesn't want to use their mobile phone to access and gain access and an ability to enable spaces to be accessible. So we've already convinced the users. So that's the easy bit. Then we need to convince the people transforming the buildings, and that's a bit more difficult because the legacy equipment that they have not only may not support wallet, and that's great with ELATEC because you've been doing that since day one, but they might not support it, then the controllers might not support it. Then, especially in Europe, you have fragmented use cases that haven't talked to each other, do not have unifying standards, the things you were talking earlier. So the industry has made it very difficult for customers and enterprises to transform. So anything we can do to change that, and that goes not only in the user experience, but also maybe the financial modeling. We've been talking about how you acquire the devices. And I think the interesting thing is for the user is the customer, is the devices they are now buying, they have much more interest in making sure they're future-proof, how they scale, how they can be updated. So I think previously, and I'm not from this industry traditionally, but you buy a reader, a lock, and a door, and you forget about it for 20 years. That's not going to happen. So that's now helping you and us to have conversations from the hardware, but also from the use case to help a customer. But it is difficult at times. And also Apple and Google don't make it easy as well. But there are challenges, but I think the easy thing is we've already convinced the customer. And if the customer knows that they can use Wallet for talent acquisition, for changing the way people work, hybrid use cases, that's where you get the push. And you get the push from the non-traditional security people. You get it from HR, from corporate real estate, from others. And that's helping make our conversations easier with customers. Yeah.
Absolutely. And certainly you've touched on a few things like the cybersecurity, data privacy, regulatory involvement, right? All those things are almost causing some pause for people while they figure out what the right answers are. But I love what you said, because the idea of future-proof, right? How do I, in an industry that over 30 years has been used to getting a 20-year ROI, and all of a sudden they're thinking about, how often do we change cell phones, right? Every 2-3 years, and that's a big change. It's a budgetary thought. Right. So I certainly think you're on the money with part of what the slowness is and some of the challenges we're overcoming, and standards definitely are a big part of that.
Can I also add? One of the use cases we have here from our friends from Honor, and I'm complimenting Honor so he doesn't ask me a question, but or only maybe one question. Okay, a lot of the challenges, I think, or the new discussions that we're having around devices is no longer that exchange of the card credential itself. It's actually more philosophical about identity. What are we trying to create? What are the revenue streams? So even when we talk about identity, the conversation around a reader is not about the reader. It's about where's my data being held? Who's looking at it? How's it being processed? Where's it being stored? Where's it being cached? And these are interesting questions that are coming up, from partners from before. And that's what making it very interesting, because it's forcing all of us to have a different conversation with the customer. And that's the exciting piece, I think. It's being part of the conversation.
It definitely is exciting. And I honestly feel like for the first time in 30 years, there's levels of conversation and disruption that we've just never seen before. Like the opportunities this is creating is very exciting. So we'll jump to this next slide. And this really is about framing, what is the magic that happens here, right? And how is it that we're going to help drive market growth based on an ecosystem that any2any helps bring with ELATEC devices?
I think without everyone straining their eyes with all of this, in the telco business, we always used to talk about having a platform for execution. So it's basically having a platform that allows you to adapt and evolve and scale in different directions. And we've done a lot of work working with technology providers to plug them into our system to try and create consistent digital journeys for people to come through. And our conversation was always about the journeys. And even this building, we're talking about single sign-on, IoT, onboarding, mobile credentials, BLE credentials, online, offline capabilities. The customer doesn't really care about all of this. They just want it to work. And I think the more we can abstract from the technology, our guys have done a great job embedding access control solutions and lifecycle and single sign-on and payment and identity and CRM. We have a long list of integrations. But it's trying to create that seamless access on the top that makes the customer just happy. And I think the question before around access controls, we're kind of in the middle of access controls, the traditional players, including your new bigger brother, is trying to help them understand that the life cycle and the issuance and the user is actually very important to the solutions that they're developing. And it's, Allegion's not any different from all of the other players. So everyone's trying to grapple with this, and we talked about AI as well. There's just so much disruption in there, so it's I don't really have an answer, but it's the complexity helps. The more tools we have in our toolbox helps the customer transform quicker. And they want someone who has the experience of dealing with multiple systems to help them transform to create better experiences for their customers. And access control is an important, but not always the major part of that.
Yeah, and I got to say, having taken a tour of this facility, I don't know how many months ago now, but the first time walking in here, and from checking in at the visitor desk to then putting my bag in the locker, stopping by the vending machine in the coffee shop, and then upstairs and having to get through doors. And the beauty was I didn't see any of this that's in the chart. What I experienced is the identity or the credential that was issued to have that experience in the building worked everywhere that I went. And it was seamless from my personal experience, right? And that is something worth its weight in gold, right? That is, I think, a lot of what sits behind this. And the beauty is then you take the strength of interoperability that ELATEC brings with the soon-to-be 100, Gerhard, right? 100 credentials that can be supported in that just enable more places that can play and create that seamless experience.
Maybe just to add on that, ideally all of you should have been coming here with an Apple Wallet, Google Wallet experience. What is the barrier to us stopping that at the moment? It's the equipment. That's it. Everything else is there. But what's interesting is the access control or the access to things is also a continual conversation with the customer. So once Apple Wallet is here and Google Wallet is here, they're going to be looking at, well, what can we do more? And if you see some of the evolutions that Apple are doing, it's crazy. So it's a constant conversation, which I don't think was there traditionally in access control, which means for us to do more, you need to do more, and then you need to improve something. And so this is a different business for us both, really, to be talking about. But it also helps the customer I think that was a conversation we had last week. It allows us to say yes to the customer more than no. And I think that's the positive part. We see
A lot more
this.
fun.
Yeah. It's
Okay, so that segues to, we've really talked about this theme today of unification. So if you could maybe share your thoughts on, with everything we've talked about up to now, and I think maybe this is just a little bit of a summary of what we've talked about, how any2any and ELATEC and what we're doing here in this building creates what is really a unified experience.
Well, you've sort of mentioned it before. From an end user perspective, they don't really care, but we do care. So we're partners, obviously, with Legic and HID and Wavelengths and Leaf, as you can see from the badge.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So but for us, it's just a question of choice, and it's horses for courses for the end customer. So I think with ELATEC, you've understood the role, I'm going to say the role you play, but also the importance you play and having interoperability built into your technology, into your firmware. And you already covered most of the use cases. Now, how we build on that is you have a closeness to the customer about that conversation. So those conversations with the readers being embedded in your reader helps us to give you whatever credential you want in whatever form you want to help a use case. And that's an entire life cycle. And that's really the goal, I think, where we connected really about, we do care, but we don't really care. And you mentioned earlier the different standards that are there, whether it be Peacock or Lero. That's the techie level. But on the other hand, we want to create choice for our customers. And I think that's fun.
Yeah, no, that definitely is fun. And you kind of made a good segue to our last topic, which is we've talked about interoperability and we talk about standards, right? So, and clearly from today's discussions between Allegion and ELATEC, we're very vested in Peacock and Alero, but also Leaf and HID and all, because that's the only way interoperability happens. So when it comes to the open standards and how does that affect you? And how do you see helping to drive that through the market, right, to create this experience?
I think generally it's very, very positive. It's very positive that people like yourselves and others are talking about the open standards because, and I come back to the telco business, which is where I originally came from, having a commonality of the standards allowed us to do more and talk to each other. In the telco business, you may remember when you wanted to move your fixed line phone to a different provider, it took sometimes like 60 days, longer at times. It was very, very painful. So we're looking at more interoperability between the different technologies, and that's going to help through standards. From an any2any point of view, we just want to make sure that we can support those standards. So we're part of that, as you can see. But I would, however, caveat that is there's a big rush to create as many standards as possible. And it would feel, and I'm always conscious of a couple of keywords. One is open, which is a big discussion about. And the other one is around future, because whenever we talk about the future life of work or the future life of credential, we humans are pretty bad at describing the future and also pretty bad at doing open standards, because open can sometimes be misleading. However, I would say in the mobile space, it feels that the standards there's a few standards out there that are complementing each other very, very well, and that can only be good for the industry. And I think the more standards the more ways we can understand each other, the better. So, Peacock is a great example of that in terms of a new way of highly securing certain offline devices for me in my view. So yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think there was a question earlier today that sort of I know I'm looking right there. He is hiding. About the disruptive capability of this type of stuff, and if you're truly investing in open, does that really, put you in harm's way? But what I really think, and I was sharing this over lunch with somebody, is you think about like disruptors like rideshare with Uber and Lyft and what that did to the taxi industry. And sure, it changed monetization, but it created so many new opportunities, right? And this is one of the things I like about all the partnerships that we've talked about today and others that are not even here in this room, because there's so many partnerships that we're involved with, but is the staying at the leading edge and figuring out how to drive those opportunities and be the disruptors, right? Disrupt yourself before it's done to you. And that's an exciting thing to be a part of. All right, well, I think we can open up for some questions.